Today I am building a bottom watering container loosely inspired by the proprietary EarthBox product. It is going to be a lot bigger than an EarthBox, and it'll be able to fit lots of plants and be entirely maintenance free for weeks if not months at a time. Here's everything we're going to need. One Home Depot container, although any strong container will work if it's the right size. In my case, I'm using a 27-gallon HDX container. A 4-inch drainage pipe that we're going to cut into pieces as supports. Some thinner PVC pipe as a filler pipe. Finally, I am using a little PVC union to make a little screened cap. Of course, we're going to need some potting mix and some landscape fabric. First step is going to be to make holes in the lid, which is easier to do while the lid is still intact. And first I'm going to make two big 4-inch holes that are going to match the size of my support pipe. And I'm going to make two of them diagonal. And now I'm going to be making a whole bunch of little holes that would serve as aeration breather holes for the roots. And before I go any further, I want to make a hole for the filler pipe. And so this is going to go through the soil and basically all the way to the bottom. I'm going to cut it to probably about this high. I'm trying to cut out a section of it that's just big enough to sit at the right depth in the box, so probably around here. And what I plan, the height that I'm planning to settle on is probably 5 or 6 inches off the bottom. It's going to be around here. Now I've done these before, so I am going to simply go by these edges here. And I'm going to make two cuts. I'm going to first cut out the middle, and then I'm going to cut off all of these bumps. And it could have been a better fit. There's probably a, I don't know, half-inch gap, less than an inch all around, which is fine because I'll be using wheat fabric to keep the soil from falling down. The important thing here is that this bottom be supported enough so that it doesn't flex down and let the soil drop into the water. So that's step one. This is our bottom. And now I'm going to trim these. That's out. And now what we have is a hold down ring that locks. And this is going to hold down the plastic sheeting and look relatively decent. So my goal is to place these in a 2x3 arrangement on the bottom, and the bottom will go on top. And now you can see the columns are going to accommodate my wicking soil that is going to be hydrating the soil that's sitting on top of this. So now my filler neck is going to fit into this hole, and you can see that it's got a slanted end, so when it sits on the bottom it allows the water to freely enter. Okay, so the next step is to be able to assemble this without these guys going all over the place like this. So I want them to stay put, and this is why I was making all of these holes. And probably I will need to make the holes in here as well. Assemble. And you can see there we'll be able to take a fair bit of distributed weight. So this is what it's going to look like, roughly. And you can do a fit. So I'm going to place the hole right around at the height of my support ledge, so that when I'm filling the water reaches up here and it's just starting to touch the soil itself, that's when I want it to start spilling over. And so I'm going to mark that, and I'm going to drill a couple of fairly large holes. This is a 1/2 inch. Or it could be smaller, but it'll be less prone to clogging. And for my next trick, I'm going to cover this hole with a little bit of screen material. And I'm going to just cut a little piece out of it, a little square piece, and then my filler pipe. I'm going to be leaving this on all the time, and then when I fill it, I just take it off. Now I'm ready to start putting in lawn fabric or weed block or whatever it is. I have this huge roll of it. It's as you can see, it's quite large. I think it's 4 feet across and I don't know how long. I've never tried this, but I'm thinking of trying to use the hot glue to hold it in place so that it's easier to work with. So to line the wicking columns. And then I'm going to put more weed block over this whole thing and overlap them. That's good. And so the question is this long enough to go in this direction? And I'm going to say yes, I think so. Now that this is in place, I am able to make a hole here into, here's my wicking column, so I can kind of cut through and make space for soil, and then without letting it shift too much, I can pinpoint the hole for the other one. Just poke through with my hand as well. And now it's good to go. So this thing is basically ready. The only thing missing now is a hole for the filling tube, which I also can just poke through with my finger. And one thing I forgot to mention is when assembling this, it is usually pretty useful to place the fill tube on the same side as the drain hole, so that when you're filling it, you can actually look at the drain hole and know when you've filled it. The next thing to do is to pack the wicking columns full of potting mix. I want to make sure that the water is drawn up through capillary action, so I want to pack them fairly thoroughly. I'm packing both of them. Then I can easily loosely fill it. I am taking breaks to water the soil to allow it to settle a little bit. The bag I'm using is 40 quarts, and two of those bags seem to be just about enough. And possibly in a few weeks it might settle and it might need a little bit more. And I'm making a trench for the fertilizer. It's probably about 2 inches deep, 2 inches wide. The fertilizer that I have on hand may not be ideal. I think it's a little bit weak. I think it is 444. The recommended type I think is 555 to 15-15-15. But either way, balanced fertilizer. And if it's a little bit weaker, you can use a little bit more of it. And the plastic I'm using to cover it from rainwater and evaporation is called Turbo Tomato, something I bought from Gurney's a while ago, and it's supposed to be a reflective mulch. I don't think it's going to do very much for the parsley I'm planting, but any plastic will do. You can probably use a trash bag. I wouldn't use a clear bag because it might overheat the soil. Now I'm filling the reservoir for the very first time. There's probably 12 gallons of water to fill, so it's going to take some time. If you have a lot of these to fill, you can just remove the nozzle and it'll go a lot faster. And here comes the overflow. And now it is time for planting, and since I'm going to be planting through the plastic, I want to make as small an incision as I can, and I'm also making them vertical to hopefully reduce the amount of rainwater that enters the soil unnecessarily and pulls fertilizer into the soil too fast. And here it is. Planting is done, is basically finished. It should not need any watering or any maintenance, probably for 2 months at a time, since these herbs don't transpire very much. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you make one, please comment.